honestly, I think the most important part of having a coach is when shit goes bad.
Yes.
Like everyone looks at a high level coach as putting championships and winning, and that is great. But I feel like the time that you really need people is when shit is not going well, because when shit is going well, everyone and their mother wants something from you. They want to give you money and have you promote things, and you're awesome and you're getting this like fluff, but everyone has a fall from grace. No champion stands on a podium forever. And I think, over the course of doing this over many times, the times that I feel like my athletes are relatively independent now, but the times where they feel needy, like they actually do want something from me, it's almost something's wrong or something's not going well, or there's a tweak and they need adjustment in the training. And I think that's really the benefit of a coaching relationship, and why I lean on the coaches, because I'm like, I can't be objective about myself. I'm living with myself 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that I think I'm most proud of like what we've done as an organization is we've taken a lot of these people and helped them become independent with the overseer, the guardrails of a coach. I always talk about like, that's what I want my role to be, is essentially the guardrails kind of going up this steep mountain. And it's like, we want to climb it together, but I'm just going to make sure you don't fall off, but I want you to be able to climb it yourself. Yeah. So I'm there if you need a hand, but at the same time, like you need to make your own decisions, figure it out yourself, and kind of learn that process, because there's going to come a time where sports performance doesn't matter as much anymore for every single athlete. And you kind of pointed that out when you said that no one's going to stand on the podium forever. When that happens, even for the best, like Rich or now Frazier kind of moving into a different realm, they still want to train. They still want to be healthy. Rich, I know, talks about playing with his kids, which is a huge passion of mine. So then
playing with Rich's kids?
Yes. Playing with my kids. But just being healthy in general.
That's two great singers for the day.
Boom, boom. I have been drinking to what Sevan said. Yeah. We can get to this later.
This guy's freaking drunk on the job.
Sorry, Max. Yeah. You can fire me later. At any rate, though, that is a passion of mine, to be able to be 50 or 60 and play with my kids and just be healthy, right? Yeah. So at that point, maybe you don't have a coach anymore, but if you had a coach previously who helped
when you're
teach
60, how old are your kids going to be? Like, what kind of playing are y'all doing?
I mean, listen, if I can't go out and walk 18 holes with Levi and Kinsley when I'm 60, then I would be very sad.
He just zinged you right back.
I don't know if that was a zinger, but
no, it wasn't a zing.
Just a good point.
Yeah, good point.
It is. And like, I didn't have, like, my dad wasn't around playing sports with me growing up. And so that has been a passion of mine, to make sure that I do that well for my kids. So that's a side subject. But still,
I've just forgot how we got to this point. Was it just that the coaching relationship is important for even the post?
The post, yeah. So like, I can teach my athletes, hey, here are some things that you can do, how to handle injuries, how to stay healthy, things that you can do with movement and mobility long-term, how to structure strength progressions that maybe are different than your CrossFit strength progressions, all of those things, so that they can take that toolbox that we've built and then essentially use that when they're 50, 60, 70, all the way up until, whenever they die. Like, these are things like, the health pursuit should not end just because I'm ending my performance career.
Yeah. I don't want to sound sanctimonious, because I'm not saying this is the point of coaching, but as I think about my job as a coach and what I've tried to do in my personal development to make sure that I'm good at it, and I'm trying to get better at it constantly so that I could be of better service to my community, I've realized that I think the concept of what we call a coach in the market right now is a diluted concept. Like in the CrossFit space, we're oftentimes very, very heavily cueing basic movement. Knees out, squat this way, do that. And so we think of a coach as somebody who tells somebody else how to move like that. Okay, well, that's your highest value that you're contributing as a coach. Then maybe on the more famous level, we're thinking of coaching as like, oh, you help somebody win a game, so you're an amazing person. You're teaching them how to win. And those are the things that we put on there. But I think the more I try to think about what's the direction of the contribution that I want to make to the market, to people in general, to athletes in general, it's really coaching things that are completely outside of the realm of sport. It's how to be understanding of where you fit in a social architecture. Are you a champion? Are you a contender? Are you somebody that fights? How do you face adversity? When adversity comes, do you step up? Do you want to be the person that can do that? How do you deal with your anxiety, your past traumas? And like all of that type of stuff is really the richness of coaching experience that transcends the games that we play. It's something that helps people become better parents, better people, better contributors in politics, and like all of the education that I've been building and doing, I've been thinking of like, okay, well, how do I define being a better coach for myself? And then how do I help people in a framework to say, become a better one of these, and here's why. Yes, some of it is teaching people to move better and understand moving better, but also being so nitpicky and neurotic about like, hey, this squat needs to look exactly like this. Sometimes I think that can make people move worse because it almost creates like hyper insecurity, a hyper focus on some of the wrong details of motion, where you can lose fluidity and you can lose the ability to squat in multiple stances and do other knee flexion patterns than the phone booth fitness we do in the gym. So I don't know why exactly I went on that rant, other than just to say that I think as a community, we need to be pushing the standard of coaching higher so that we could solve some of these problems. And I think in doing that, some of the issues that we deal with, even like the no repping and putting that pressure on the judges, and like I think it would just be a lot easier if people were holding themselves to that. Yeah.
So now in your coaching career, you've been doing it, what, 15 years, something like that. How do you define success for yourself as a coach? And then maybe even more importantly, maybe not more importantly, who knows, as for your athletes, like the athletes that you coach, both at a high level and just those that maybe are just like on the bubble.
Yeah. Somebody winning the games would be rewarding because I've tried for so long to set people up for success. So there's always going to be there. But I think if I got into that moment and someone won the games, it's not going to fulfill kind of my longer term ambitions of what I set out to do and why I built the team at TTT and like why I've continued to push this and talk about it and try to, make it better and bigger and more of a contributor to the space. So those success variables, I think, would just be hard to articulate. I think it's a little bit of the culture of like some of it. It's just like a feel, like being in the environment and getting to watch these people train to make it through last chance qualifiers and make it through the games and watch the attention to detail that goes into all their movements and all the coaches being there to help. And Chris putting together these fucking things that are super entertaining that let all the people that are all over the world be able to see it. In spite of not being like the biggest player out there, it's just fulfilling on a really deep internal emotional level. Like, my life means something to a bunch of people and it's helping me become better by watching and being around people that are so committed and passionate and hardworking. And in the process of going through it is making me just reevaluate what success is. Yeah. You know, like, yes, I would love to have more resources to build my dream facility and pay if there were athletes that I wanted to be able to train full time and be representatives of TTT. And I'm sure we'll get there, but they're just not my like North Star anymore. It's like, life has changed me. The process of coaching has changed my, I'm not going to get nervous or think that I'm not a good coach if somebody doesn't do well at a competition. Right. They don't need that pressure, and it's stupid and overly self-important to think that I could I did a talk saying that coaches can't guarantee winning. And I still think it's true. Like, there are some people that in high pressure moments, when everything matters, when they have to be able to do something, can do it. They can execute.
Yeah.
That is a very, very, very hard thing to coach. You can give everybody the tools, but the being able to control your narrative and your self-talk and your doubt and be able to step up in that moment when everybody's watching against somebody else that's just as good or better than you and do the thing is super hard. And it's not just something that somebody giving you cliche statements like, think it and it will come out, or like that.
If you build it, it will come.
Yeah. Like, it's just, it's not that simple.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you know what movie that is?
Yeah. The Kevin Costner baseball movie.
Field of Dreams, man. We've talked about this before.
What was the quote?
Yeah.
If they build it, or if you build it, they will come.
Did you know that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely did.
I mean, that one's like,
that's
like one of the ones.
One of the things I think that happens and I'm sure that this is we've talked about this, so I know this is the same for you, is the coaching process becomes also about the connections that you make, the relationship that you build, and that's what makes it, there's a deeper meaning to it then. Like you're not just getting someone better at a sport of going fast, doing fitness work. It's more about building relationships with them and helping them grow as a person. And that's so easy to say, but at the end of the day, like that genuinely is such a passion, I think, of mine, and I think of the organization, to kind of help people build into, again, this other role that they may have, because fitness is only, it's a short period of time in this thing we called life.
I agree with that. I feel like, remember I showed you that documentary, Anvil, the story of Anvil?
Oh, dude, yeah.
I watch that once a year. It's about this old band from the 80s that almost could have made it, right there with Metallica and Slayer and all that, but they got washed away to the side. But they never quit. And then they made a documentary about them, I don't know, probably 20 years ago now, but they're still old as hell then. And they're still trucking. They're still trying. And part of it is very like, this is kind of hard to watch, but then it ends up being super beautiful at the end. And they make that whole point that, it's like, it was all, whether it was worth it or not, it was all about the relationships and the people along the way that made it, matter.
Yeah. I mean, even if everything came down to only winning, in every sport, only one person or one team wins. So you better reframe it to not just be about that unless you are that person. In other words, like if you're not going to be the person that's winning, you got to reframe it somehow and enjoy life that way. And so that's at least another opportunity for you to do that.
Man, I don't think of myself as preachy. I don't want to preach, but if I could get a message to the younger, there's a young champion out there that is going to be the next champion. And I would, if I could put pressure on them, say, challenge yourself to be the best, but also to be more than that. Because the story of athletes who hyper obsess and focus on winning as their top priority, the stories all lead to success in the material world. A lot of money, a lot of fame, a lot of all the good stuff that a lot of us strive for. But there's plenty of documentaries and stories out there that they also lead to a super isolating, lonely, and unfulfilled experience when it all ends. Or as it's happening, like in the process of getting all this shit that everybody says they want all the time, you're the one that gets it. It's lonely and isolating because all the friends that you have on the competition floor are losing at your expense. Like you're the one that's doing it and you're getting more of the resources. And there's some level of joy that comes with that, I'm sure. I mean, I haven't had it at that level, but I've had it at some, and I like it, and it does feel good to win. And I'm sure if you magnified that, but it almost looks like it can become like a drug that disconnects you from humanity. It disconnects you from the connection and purpose and meaning. And it seems like the people that have fulfillment over the course of their lives, if you say like, okay, you're going to be an athlete, let's say until you're 35 or 40, you look at like kind of that next half of life. If the average person lives almost to 80 years old, all of the meaning and stuff, and like passing your legacy and passing your knowledge off to the next generation and contributing in a way that, makes your life something that's celebrated when you're gone and has an impact when you're gone, and having some sort of contribution to the development of the sport that you were a part of or whatever it is. I feel like that is a more rewarding journey. That's a bigger part of your experience that should be focused on. And it shouldn't just be focused on when you're done. It should be like, oh, part of my plan is to fuck shit up and win and be the best that's ever done it so that I can do this in my next chapter.
I love all that, but I feel like that's kind of a moot point because I feel like the people who are that aren't going to hear that. And they can't hear it.
Somebody could.
Yeah.
Why not? There's champion.
Is there some, hold on. I'm not saying no one can. I'm not saying it maybe hasn't happened, but I feel like by and large, the people who are that, they're going to have to just learn the hard way at the end of the journey.
You're saying
they missed out on
the best of the best.
Like, I mean,
no, but there have been
point
best
to Kobe.
I
feel like that's why when I heard he passed, it was so devastating because it's kind of to your point. I feel like he had done the heads down, mama mentality all the way through. And I feel like his second chapter in life was about to be better than his first.
Yeah.
But people hated him for the longest time because of how he was.
But I don't think you could have fixed him during, and it wouldn't. And I don't think he would have had the success.
But you're saying that he wasn't focused on any of the self-development things outside of basketball and winning?
Outside of winning.
Yeah, I don't know. From hearing
I mean,
him talk,
maybe,
it's
because, I mean, we don't fucking know COVID.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It just seems like, to Chris's point, you know, the best, the Tigers.
I feel like they have this thing that they're just not going to.
They're just so focused on themselves and
like
and their
they
own
can
success.
keep that focus as
we could
thing.
sit there and present the good example. Like, I feel like it's way deeper than that. Like, you wouldn't have had to rewind to their childhood and undone that somehow.
Yeah.
You're not going to just present to them like, hey, man, you're missing out on all these life things. Change your plan.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even say to do that. I would just encourage them to think of themselves as more than that.
Sorry, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think that's a good pursuit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're dumb
You're
for
just
wanting
saying
that.
it might
I'm saying
not
that I think it's going to go in one ear, out the other, and they won't hear it. And then they'll come back and find this episode of Max saying this once they've hit that point and been like, damn, I should have listened to that guy.
But I think that's still a powerful thing. I just still don't even think people are saying that.
Yeah.
Like, those people
Yeah,
aren't
that's
even
true.
hearing that stuff.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
like, it's
good
almost
point.
like, hey, keep doing this. And people aren't stepping up and being like, hey, you know, like, maybe you should slow down, and, you know, you're only 16 or 17 years old, and, you know, you don't need to be in your peak athletic form right now. Try this thing out, or spend an hour a week doing this, and, you know, learning other things that could potentially contribute. Because a lot of if you say, okay, well, only one person wins, then all right, well, 10,000 of those 17-year-olds are not going to be the person
Correct.
that gets there. So we're not giving them any of the tools to.
No, I think we should. I agree with you
Yeah.
fully, but I
Yeah.
think what Chris is saying is, like, the person that is on top
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
has a different mentality.
Yeah,
And
true.
that's true in all
that
sports.
is a good question. That it brings up a good question. Is teaching it a potential blunter in helping people get to that hyper-focused, winning at all cost mentality?
I would say probably. But I think maybe at the end of the day, they'd be a more well-rounded human being, and maybe on their deathbed, if you presented them the two, now some motherfuckers are just crazy and they're going to want the high gold no matter what. So we're not going to talk. But I think the other people would probably be like, you know what? I think I would have rather not sacrificed everything for this single pointed goal and had a little more balance.
Yeah.
But
and is it necessary
too late.
to sacrifice everything?
Well,
And is it even true? Like, people say that. They say that's the mindset. It's like, but are you really sacrificing everything?
No,
I
absolutely
think it's
not.
hyper obsession that you allow to let things fall by the wayside because you're hyper obsessed.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it while you're doing it. You're not like, oh man, I'm fucking up all this over here for this.
Yeah.
There's a deeper conversation there that I think would be a completely different podcast, but it really is finding what is most important to you and what does life mean and like all of that. And like that would be digging really deep into why people live the way that they live. But in sport, I still think
this got really philosophical. I did
no,
not expect this at all.
No, it did.
Speaking of champs, I heard you were drunk, saying that.
That Medeiros kick.
Somebody tagged me.
Yeah.
I don't follow Sevan, which actually I think I should because he's hilarious. So Sevan, I appreciate all your silly
Go follow
jokes.
him.
So yeah, basically he called me out.
So on the last
podcast,
podcast, we did. You said what?
I said that I think Medeiros is beatable, which if I were
and you said he's beatable because you think there's some other good guys out there.
There are some other good guys. So like in other words, Frazier's last year, I would have said he's like a 1.5 to 1 chance to win. Probably more than that. Like, I mean, Frazier was almost a guarantee to win unless certain workouts come out.
I mean, everyone is beatable. Like, if you get injured in a competition or something like that.
But Frazier was the most well-rounded guy in the sport. And here's a perfect example of this. In 2020, which was different because of the COVID
Online,
games, they had the online first, and then they went out to Aromas, I believe.
Yeah.
There were 24 events. Frazier was first or second in 22 of those.
Yeah.
He won 18 of those 24 events. He was so dominant that it wasn't even close. I mean, he was winning by 500 points or something crazy like that.
Dude, can I cut that point off?
Yeah, you already
did.
To add to it, on 2018, Noah was it 2018 or 19?
2019,
Noah
Noah took second. Yeah.
So I, for the first time, was on the floor during the podium ceremony, and I was sitting there and watching this whole thing play out, and then they go, okay, now we're going to give the workout wins to the athletes that won all the workouts. And Tia and Matt were sitting next to each other, and they had like a line of plaques of all of the workout wins that they had in that year. It was like, it wasn't even close.
Yeah. So
that should be their hashtag, man. Line of plaques.
Yeah, line of plaques.
I think that's what I'm looking at. Objectively, I have an overly analytical mind, and so I'm looking at the scores. I want to see what the separation. Like I've taken these workouts. I actually dissected every single one of Noah's games workouts and timed it. And what's the difference between he and Frazier that year?
Yeah.
And to be completely honest, that Noah had a chance to win. That was probably the weakest Frazier performance that we saw, and Noah just like absolutely executed until maybe the last day perfectly well.
Yeah.
But in like, let's say 2018, Frazier won whatever, like 7 events of the 15, and then he was top 10 in every single one.
Yeah.
To do that is just like sheer dominance in a sport where anything can come out, and he just wasn't weak at anything.
Yeah.
Whereas Medeiros, who, if I had to bet, I would say it's like 3-1 odds. Like he is very, very good, and I actually really like Medeiros. So that's not the point. The point is, being objective, he only won.
He's such a likable dude.
He is he really is. Like I like him a lot.
Yeah. If he ends up being our dominant champ, I'm for it.
Yeah.
I want to look up the semifinals. Go ahead, keep talking.
So Medeiros only won 1 event last year. And he had a couple that were, maybe kind of average-ish finishes. He never had a terrible event. And you got to keep this in mind. Vellner finished 35th in that first workout. And if he would have finished in a decent spot, they actually would have been points from each other. So Vellner could have easily at least been competitive. He finished second overall. But I think someone like a Vellner or a Fakowski, they're just really well-rounded, still think Noah and Travis have a chance depending on what the workouts are. It just really comes out to what the test come down to, and then also execution on the floor.
Yeah, he was 4.47.132 at his semifinal.
Yeah.
That means a 7th in a semifinal at the games is probably a middle of the pack finish at the games.
Yeah, that was the legless rope climb.
Because I remember at regionals, Frazier was like 1, 1, 1.
He won
2,
every workout.
1. Yeah, so I'm not saying that he's a guarantee to win, but he's definitely has not earned the level of separation that Matt had over the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the whole point there. Whereas, again, if you look at the female side, Tia Toomey is just like Frazier, even more dominant than Frazier, and it's almost like a guarantee. If
I feel
you're
bad for
person.
anyone who becomes a champion, kind of like a Ben Smith, where it's like you get your championship, but you weren't like back to back to back. Because we've set such a precedence with a lot of these people, getting multiples that if one-time champ, you don't even count that motherfucker.
That happens at every level too. People are like, oh, they're just like a one-time games athlete. Yeah.
And no one remembers the Toronto Raptors win. Like,
I mean, so
come on, where's your 2 champs?
So Sevan, we're not drunk, man. There's some logic to this
Although,
man's thinking.
I mean, I do
you
love
might
some
be drunk anyway.
Drunk on the water.
What's your favorite drink right now? What's your go-to?
I usually do like an Elijah Craig or just a Maker's Mark. They're a little bit cheaper, and I'm cheap. So if I go out, though, Buffalo Trace. For sure.
If you go out, you get your Sunday's best.
I just have red wine.
Yeah,
That's
you are a red
go-to.
wine guy.
I like rum and like Coke or rum and Diet Coke too.
Yeah, I'm just like a sipper though. I don't,
Although
I don't
we
go
had
crazy.
that cold sake.
Oh man, that was really amazing.
Really tasty.
Yeah, so we went to this Japanese restaurant last week when we were in Colorado, and it was authentic Japanese food. And it's just like family style sharing.
It was just amazing.
Yeah, so they bring out. We just ordered 10 things on the menu, and they bring them all out one at a time, and then we would share it. And
it's kind of like Japanese tapas. Yeah. Like just small plates.
And now we sound like idiots.
I was gonna say, where's this going? Is it you gonna deliver this?
Well, no, it was really cool because you get to experience like all of these different styles of food. Like one would be cold, and then the other one's like super hot. One was on a hot plate with like a fire underneath it, and then the next one was like cold eggs. Get out of here, Chris. You just are sad that you weren't there.
No one gives a shit about your Japanese
I thought it was
Next
awesome.
topic, please. Yeah.
So one of the things that actually in Sevan's podcast they talked about, they clipped out Travis in one of our videos, which Chris made.
Muscle up lockouts.
The muscle up lockouts.
Yeah,
and
that was the bonus rant.
Bonus rant. If you guys haven't seen those, go to our YouTube page.
Because we did an
awesome job.
Six
videos
that this fuck did post-production and made me go, this is video 1 of 6.
Yeah, because there was originally going to be 4 videos total, and I was like, nah, this has to be 6, so I had to edit.
The audience never knows.
You know what that audio was, though? That was the count from Sesame Street.
I was trying to figure out what it was. I had no idea. I thought you
Who does
did
the
that.
TTT?
Oh, that's me, but sped up a little bit. You know what? That's a little nod
That sounds
to?
like the little video you did on movie reviews.
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
That
yes,
when
that's
you did movie
awesome.
Reviews?
Let's not bring up
Can
my
we
my
can
movie
we
reviews.
clip that
I recently
into
took
this?
those all off my YouTube page, but I didn't want anyone to find them.
They're amazing.
But no, the TTT, you know, anyway, what's your next topic?
Run far away.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is that they obviously are bringing this up, and Hiller's been an advocate. And again, I've been harsh at times saying like, look, you have to come up with solutions. And I think he's done a really good job of that recently. And maybe Sevan's kind of pulled him into that space, but it's interesting thinking about what Travis said there, and go watch the video if you haven't. But essentially, Travis is like, I reviewed everyone's videos from the games, and everyone's kind of like doing the lockout but fall away, right? Which is not a true lockout, because the standard is your shoulders have to be over the rings, you have to show control, and your elbows have to be fully extended, like true terminal elbow extension.
Yeah.
Most people aren't doing that, but Travis is. And so I judged him in that workout. That was 30 muscle-ups for time. And Travis is good at muscle-ups, but when you're comparing him to Noah or Jake, they did them in like 140 or something crazy like that, super fast. So Travis is losing, let's say, a minute to them before they got on the row and they had a max row calories. So now Travis is at a deficit not only on the muscle-up workout, but also on the row workout, which he's really good at. Like if you take him, he's going to be top 5 at the games in any row workout like that, if it's just that.
Yeah. Are you drunk again?
So
Where's your dad on that?
So my thought would be, as a coach, and then also just looking kind of like objectively at the sport, is there a benefit to always training that high standard if they're going to let athletes get away with the fall away?
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I wanted to get to.
Yeah. I mean, I've had this conversation with Trav, and the sucky thing
Can't
is,
beat them, join them.
well,
That's the question.
Part of it is that he did try to do that kind of push away lockout for a while at competition, because we were like, hey, this is faster and everyone is doing it. And it kind of becomes like a keep up with the Joneses type thing. It's like, well, if they're doing it and they're cutting off 1/10 of a second on every rep, and over the course of 50 of them, it actually makes us a difference. We've actually tried to do that. And then he's gotten big, costly no reps in competitive situations. And then I'm like, all right, well, you got to train it at a tighter standard. And you're going kind of back and forth between this bullshit, not being able to try to figure out what's the optimal way to do it and what's going to be allowed. And if it's going to be allowed to do it fast, can you just like automatically change it back to a more strict standard in the moment? But I think it's a problem. I think it'd be a hard thing to standardize. Like you could probably,
what would the answer be?
I mean, you could probably figure out some sort of, get everybody up on the rings and put some sort of tape connecting the ring straps, and your head has to hit it or something like that.
They did that with the ring dip standard. You remember that? Your shoulders had to hit
your shoulders had to touch
strap.
something. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are probably creative ways to do it. If money wasn't an option, I'm sure that you could do some sort of, motion capture or post review. I think Hiller actually brought that up, which was a point that I had made and agree with, that maybe we take the judges out. We come up with some sort of unified, hey, this is the standard, and if you don't meet it in slow motion, you're going to get 1/10 of a penalty for everyone that's a little short. So that way, any advantage that you did capture from it is removed after the fact from you on the leaderboard. And maybe you could just watch it and say, okay, well, the shoulders have to be in front of the rings with the arms fully locked out at some point. Then you can fall if you want.
Would you say that in live competition as well?
Well, I think that'd be the only way that you could do it. And then after the live competition heat goes, instantaneously, those videos are reviewed.
There are 10 judges.
All the penalties are assessed as the next heat is going. And then, okay, now the scores are official. I think that'd be the only way.
That's never going to happen.
Oh, I
That'd
know.
be wild.
I know. Yeah. I know.
Great
for
idea.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Waiting on the scores
yeah. And it's just a weird sport. Like,
They don't have money for the free judges they have right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and
that's
subjective parts of sport are always like figure skating. People get scores where people are like, well, how did they judge that? It's got to be fixed. Or like, sometimes people have like all of the subjective standards of powerlifting. Like people have put up world records, and then internet judges have been like, this is not to depth. This is not
So what are some
parallel.
creative ways they could fix that? So you said the shoulder tape line or something?
I was thinking the motion capture stuff that they use for video games.
No, let's take away the hypothetical of them having the video.
Having money and stuff.
In the current thing that we know.
It can't be a shoulder for muscle ups because your shoulders have to go back. It could be a head touch at the top.
Oh, you mean
so in
the
other
line.
words, if it's a strap, like if you guys go back to 2014 regionals, they
but
had a
then you
strap
got
ring
bullshit
dips.
with like, well, what happens if a woman has really long hair and they have a bun? Like, where are you counting where their head
There
is
will
sitting?
always be
or
issues like that.
We put swim caps on everyone. You gotta do the workout in a swim cap.
Okay, so that idea sucks. What else? What else? Maybe 1 second hold at the top. Would that be too sketchy?
I mean, the other aspect of this is maybe the community needs to just accept that it's like judgment calls are going to be close and movement standards are going to be close, and we should err on the side of not no-repping people and just letting them play the sport unless there are egregious things.
Yeah,
Hiller,
I mean, I do
everyone
think
has to play the game.
Yeah,
to
but
that point,
and you have
like
to be
Formula One and NASCAR. It's like the name of the game is cheating, and it's on the sport to figure out, who is cheating.
Yeah, it's tough.
But they have the money to do that.
Yeah.
I just don't think it can be that. And then again, it comes back to
Can't be what?
It can't just be like, oh, we're going to kind of like have a gray line with all the standards. I think that just becomes super sloppy.
I mean, I think it should be tighter, but the problem is people are not conflict comfortable enough to be like, no.
Yeah.
They're like, go a little deeper. No rep. Okay, that's
I don't
good.
even blame. I mean, I wouldn't want that position.
And I'm not saying
Shoot
it
me
in a
the face.
judgmental way. That was me verbalizing how I feel in person with my athletes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've gone through full workouts with Travis and given him a bunch of no reps, and then had to almost have an argument with him after the fact because he's like, dude, they don't do that at competition. That's completely unrealistic for me to train that way. That standard is not how they make me squat in person.
Well, so here's
why
a
would
good
I squat
point.
that way? And I'm like,
we should make a video series
that's
where we have
interesting.
people like
yeah.
crazy hit the standard. Let's take something like a deadlift where like it's like clear as hell that they're squeezing their butt so tight, like no farts coming out ever, and then do the opposite where they're not getting no reps, but they're riding it really close and see how different the times are.
Yeah.
Like put them back to back.
So here's a really good point going back to what Max just said. People don't realize that you actually would train a high-level athlete differently based on the standard that's given. So in other words, if it was okay to press away on the rings and you don't have to truly lock out, I'm going to train the ring dip differently and the kip sequence differently than the way that Travis is doing it.
Yeah.
And Travis would be doing a disservice to himself by training that position over and over and over again. Yeah. So that there are all these other things that come into it as well. But that's also why I still think that we hold the standard as high as possible, and we have to push the sport to also hold the standard as high as possible. And that still comes down to my solution is the sport has to figure it out, how to make the money to pay the judges to be able to do what they have to do.
I don't think human eyes are good enough to see the things that are happening in speed. And I think that people...
You don't think 10 judges could get paid in no rep muscle ups correctly?
Yeah, and muscle ups, yes. But I think like 75-pound squat snatches overhead at max effort speed, at Randy speed, to be able to dictate from a side profile that the bar got completely over the center line, hips, knees are like they're getting to their top positions and recoiling so fast that you can barely see it. And like in the NFL or the NBA or tennis, how many times are people calling the ball in when it actually hits the line? And they're right close to happening.
Well, the opposite is
These
true
things
too.
are so close together and they're happening so fast.
And the opposite though about putting things in slow-mo is true. Like some of our own videos, I'll be like, man, that looks sketchy. And then I'll put it in slow-mo and they do hit.
Yes.
When you put it in slow-mo, you say, oh shit, they did lock it out right there at the top, but it's so fast and you wouldn't know that until you got it in slow-mo.
Yeah.
So it works both ways.
And you're processing it at such a fast speed while also trying to fucking count for them.
Yeah.
Right? Like you'd need two judges. You'd need a counter and a no repper that could somehow like the person could yell no rep and the counter just, okay, and don't count that
That's
one
a good
type
point.
thing. Right? Like there's so much criticism about this as if it's an easy thing to do. And it's extremely challenging with the people that are moving their fastest.
Yeah, I still think that you could educate judges enough and those that have been around the sport enough to know exactly, at least have some guidelines to know what we'll consider a good rep and a no rep, and then we still would have video review after. I think that's where CrossFit's failed, especially for those that have done the appeal process. Yeah. The appeal process is just so sloppy right now. Yeah. There's no point in even having it.
Yeah. So I think the first issue is having penalties that can be enforced retroactively. Like if you find a video where an on-floor judge missed a whole lane of, like, somebody did every single rep poorly, but they got away with it, I feel like that shouldn't be allowed. The athletes should have that standard held to them as well. And a head judge should be able to
hold on. So what are you saying right there?
That there needs to be some way to enforce some sort of a fair penalty afterwards. And also the opposite.
But in that instance, it would be like a bummer if you were that athlete, like, sorry, my judge sucked, and they let me get this far. You know what I'm saying?
That is
Maybe.
true.
Like it's not my fault you gave me this shit, judge.
But then, but the opposite, even on the opposite side of that, people get no rep calls that they then go after and appeal and get back. And there's not a formal process for, like, when we're at MAC, Jordan Adcock got a no rep penalty on a legless rope climb in that workout, and the original solution was 4 seconds. And I was like, hold on.
No rep?
They said that she went to touch and she missed, and she grabbed the rope again, and then she went to touch and she
that was
hit
incorrect, right?
It was incorrect. She did do that. She just didn't clamp her legs in that process, so it still was a good legless rope
So it was
climb.
a clean rep.
It was a clean rep that she got a no rep call.
No rep. Got it.
4 second penalty, or 4 seconds added back or subtracted from her time, and I was like, hold on, wait, 4 seconds is like how long it takes to do the climb. But
that's why they gave her 4 seconds.
Yeah, but there's all the rest that happens in between if you're doing 11. And I'm like, okay, well, then she had to go and appeal that. And then eventually they found a good solution that I think it gave her like all the rest time plus the rope climb time. But I'm like, hold on, shouldn't all of these things be formal? Like, hey, if you win an appeal on this movement, and you could do it per workout.
So they ended up making the right call, but it took a while, and you're saying that it should have been instantaneous. They knew what the call would be if this happened?
If you are in the, like, you could even attribute it to, like, if you build a workout ahead of time, let's say the legless rope climb workout, okay, most of these scores are going to fall between 3 and 6 minutes. So let's say the midpoint of that, for math's sake, is 5 minutes. That means that every round is 30 seconds. At the minimum, you should say, if you get an unfair no rep penalty, you will automatically get a 30-second reduction from your time when you do it, because you're dividing what the cost to the athlete was in the workout. Like, it's going to be at least that kind of 30-second window. I think you could have those formalized. If somebody does get no rep calls on muscle ups, it's like, all right, well, how much time is that? Or what's a fair penalty? Having a major penalty, a multiple minute penalty for somebody missing extension by, an inch on every single rep, is that equal to like the wall ball thing, where in the Masters thing, people got no reps and shouldn't have gotten through the first window? Right. I'm like, well, how are major penalties always the same? It should be specific to the specific workout. And I think that would set up judges better to be able to make mistakes and us to fix them afterwards.
Yeah. It's just a very complicated sport, because it's not only the time that it takes to do the rep, but it's also what that does to your body in the resting time later on in a workout. Yeah. How fast you go earlier on does dictate how much deterioration you have.
That's a big one for the legless rope climb.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Something local
you do
like
one
that.
Extra thing.
But I feel like that's kind of almost the reason why I feel like in in-person setting, you should just let people race and just enforce the penalties afterwards. Yeah. The goal should be the judge is there to keep your count. Perfect. And if you're off count, then that's the judge's responsibility, and you can appeal that, and that time can just be added back. Like, hey, they miscounted and you did 5 less double unders. You're getting.
That would be kind of fun though, to have the drama, to have it play out. Like, where did all the chips fall after we watched the video review?
So I had an athlete at Syndicate. They were doing the double Jackie. So they started on the row, and then they did the thrusters, chest bars, thrusters again, and then they finished on the row. Yeah. Well, she was 30 thrusters into her second round, and she was ahead at that point in time, and they had to do 50 thrusters. Well, at the 30 rep mark, the judge waved her to the rower and said, come on, you're done. And for a second, she dropped the bar and started to go, and she was like, wait, no, I still have 20 thrusters left. So I mean, it's awesome that she did this because, like, I think that's just a really cool thing to hold yourself to a high standard. She could have easily just went to the rower, but she came back and finished her 20 thrusters. Now, the point of that is, what happens to her now if she just would have went to the row? She would have won the workout, not just her heat, but she would have won the entire workout, get to first place. What would they have done to her?
Yeah, that's why I think the process needs to be standardized first. Before we start worrying about how to ensure that the standards are met, what is the penalty for cheating? And what is the judge's responsibility? And if something is a wrong call, a wrong judgment call, what is the athlete entitled to? And if it's a correct judgment call, what's the penalty for it? And how is it enforced?
This is only solved with a legitimate athletes union, or whatever you want to call it, coming together and bargaining with the sport of CrossFit. That is the only way
to see like what's
process,
reasonable,
correct.
like what could they reasonably do with their resources, their judging and all of that. But are the athletes the best people to do that?
Well, it could be a collection of coaches as well. Like
I think it needs to be like part of L1 staff. It needs to be part
Here's
coaches.
The thing, though.
It needs to be
a lot of the L1
athletes.
staff, they're not in the performance world anymore. They don't understand how fast these guys and girls are going.
Well, some of them are still judging the final heats of the games. Yeah. And that was part of the issue too. They're very protected. You know, like those are their main people. And I know, like, if you fuck up and you're one of like the main TTT people, I'm going to have your back more than I'm going to have, you know, somebody else. Yeah, for sure. And I think there's some of that is part of the reason why it's hard to enforce. But I think having a process that says like, look, we're all fucking human and we're doing this job for free. That's really hard to do and really hard to get right. Instead of trying to make it so that way the judges don't make mistakes in evaluation, let's make sure that the penalty process and the time penalty process and the flow of the workouts is all just like very structured. Like if somebody miscounts, I feel like it's so silly that coaches can't submit appeals. Why is that?
Sure.
Coaches do things for athletes in every other sport.
Why would you want to do that?
Well, I'm just saying, like if Travis came
What's the benefits of you doing it rather than Travis?
Well, in a competitive setting, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I just think taking an athlete out of the mental space of just cooling down, getting their fuel, and getting ready for the next workout. So in between, you basically are like, I just got fucked. Now I got to go deal with getting fucked and getting fixed and then deal with these fucking people that are like, well, these are the rules. We can't do that. And I'm like, why? First of all, why is it their responsibility to do that if you made a mistake? And then why am I here? Like, I can literally take this stress off the athlete's head, let them go warm up, let them cool down, and then go to them afterwards and be like, all right, here was the resolution. You gave me authority to do it. Or they gave me the choices. They say, you can either do X or you could do Y. Go talk to Trav, figure out what he wants to do.
Because even if they get like a positive thing, it's like they wasted energy having to deal with it.
Yeah, it's time, energy, mental space, and also just frustration because the athletes that participate in this sport contribute a insane amount of time, energy, focus, money to be able to do this. And they really are passionate about being as good as they possibly can and giving themselves to it. It's really hard to participate in a sport that is just not clear, like what's fair, what's the rules, what's going to happen, what are the judges going to do. If you're in a speed ladder, for example, this has happened to Travis, a squat clean ladder came out at the CrossFit Games one year and we were like, licking our chops because Travis was like freaking touch and go squat cleaning 365 for a double in 2013. Like he was one of the strongest cleaners in the field. And first barbell was like super light. So it's like a, sprint through the barbell, then it cuts down the field, it gets heavier, sprint through the barbell, cuts down the field, gets heavier. And we're going into this with expectations that he's going to get absolutely crush it. 3, 2, 1, go, runs up, squat clean, jumps over the bar, no rep. Runs back, squat cleans it quick, goes through. That was it. End. Gone. And it's like, okay, well, you just made a judgment call at full speed. And maybe it was the right judgment call. Maybe it actually wasn't it was a no rep and it didn't meet depth. But if you went back and you watched the video and you were like, okay, well, they made that mistake. Now this just put Travis in 30th place in the workout when he could have potentially won it with no recourse to get back into the race if he justifiably earned the right to do it, which is like, okay, well, how about this? If we design a workout, maybe each workout could have a different penalty process. It's like, hey, no matter what on this squat clean ladder, everybody is going to go through it at full speed. If any of your reps don't meet depth, or if you dump the barbell too quick, instead of a judge having to call no rep at full speed, after the fact, we're just going to apply a half-second penalty to any depth not being met and any release of the shoulders not being met. That
I love
would be
the idea.
different.
It would have to be done smart enough that you wouldn't game it.
Well, so here's the thing, right?
And the penalty would need to be fair. But I think that is going to be a more realistic solution than expecting in a sport that can't pay judges for them to be professionals at counting at full speed, seeing movement at full speed, keeping track of it, being there for fucking 3 straight hours judging the same workout over and over
And having
again.
to put your hands behind your back and hold a clipboard.
and
They're fucking
also
solid at that. You ever seen them?
Yeah,
They're great.
And some of them too are in they're on death's doorstep with they're like, okay, for this camera shot, we need to make sure that you're on your knee right in front of the platform where people are doing max jerks under fatigue. And I saw 10 judges almost get smashed with weight with people failing. And I'm like, why do they have to stand there?
So I love what you're saying. And I actually think that makes more sense than anything that has been applied so far. Now, the problem still is if CrossFit's the one that's dictating that, there is still no say from the athletes or coaches. And in every other sport, there is say from coaches and athletes because they're the ones that are playing the sport. They're the ones that are going fast. They're the ones that are taking the risk, like let's say in football. And that's why there's a collective bargaining agreement, both with salary caps and getting paid and all that, but also with the standards of the sport. A lot of that still comes from the NFL.
It's going there, though.
Well, here's the thing, though. They have to be able to reach out to not just a small group, but all of these athletes, males, females, teams, coaches, the L1 staff, if you want the judges involved, which I do think makes sense, and then come up with a game plan that fits the workouts. Part of that process may mean that the games workouts are then announced ahead of time so that everyone can talk about the standards and
then it gets rid of unknown and
Right.
unknowable. I think that what you're feeling right now is it's like the culture being sick of the bullshit, not from just this year. It's of the last decade and a half. It's 15 years of doing things a certain way as this thing was continuing to rise and come to prominence. And it had an ownership shift, which then makes it look like, oh, this is their problem. This is what they're doing. Look, they're doing this. But it's like, okay, well, this is also kind of a sum total of how we all interacted. All the people now that are voicing their opinions now, we're part of the problem too, because we didn't voice our opinions earlier because we were scared that something could potentially happen to our businesses or we would get sued or whatever. So there's the silence of that being part of it. There's athletes that have allowed themselves to push the standards farther.
Goes
and
back
farther
to that first
and
point,
farther
right?
to go
Should
faster.
I kind of cheat the standards?
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy solution. There's no point the finger and make it a fix. I think it's a cultural fix. It needs sport leadership. It needs athletic leadership. It needs value systems and what does the CrossFit community really want to be highlighted from a philosophy standpoint. If the athletes are going to be a representation of what we think is the highest degree of health, performance, fitness, aesthetics, whatever, and there are role models, then workout selection, workout type, the total volume, amount of time it takes to be able to be elite at this, all of these variables would need to be thought about. Is how do we protect from corruption? How do we make sure that CrossFit events that are sanctioned overseas are safe? How do we make sure that developmental athletes are getting better? That I don't know where those conversations are because the communication from top down right now hasn't been great. They got new ownership, new CEO, switch CEO. I haven't heard anything from the interim CEO in terms of big picture, hey, here's what, we're hypothesizing what's going on at CrossFit. Are they dealing with affiliates? Are they dealing with, we don't know.
That shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Though.
So I feel like at some level,
It shouldn't be the case that we don't know, you mean?
Yeah, we should know.
I
We
think
should
the
be a
whole
part of it.
community should be in some capacity. You don't need to share every detail of every single problem and every single thing, but there needs to be a vision. This is what are we all working towards?
And it can't just be a media day where no one's watching it.
And the athletes need to be excited about participating in the change. Hey, we're making these changes because it's going to make you more money. It's going to keep you safer. It's going to allow you to compete longer.
Do you feel like all this, do you feel like the DTLW squad, as I'll call them,
DTLW
doing the Lord's work, Sevan, Hiller? You think that squad's going to have a good little impact?
So here's
next year?
I want to bring that up real quick, and you can answer this. this is a major concern to me actually in the sport. And I'm going to end this on a positive note, but this is a concern that they're doing this, and then there's going to be a huge push at the games for no reps. And then you're going to screw athletes that have good reps on a squat clean, good reps on a muscle up, because the judges feel like they need a no rep because of the push.
Oh, hot take. So you're saying that say what?
Yeah.
Essentially,
I think this is going to backfire into
I think
super strict standards that are going to be
that are
no reps on things
that are
good
over
reps.
judging.
And
yes.
I think people are going to call no reps because they just don't want to be part of the people
I'll
that
bet
don't
$20 that doesn't happen.
that people
don't
don't
think-
call no
That it
reps.
just
at the
doesn't
games.
swing super far the other way.
Oh,
Man, I would be very worried about that. And
If
maybe
it-
I
and
hope you're right.
I mean,
Chris.
I hope that it swings at least a little bit because there were some.
No, I
bad
hope
shit.
good calls are had, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to swing so far where really good reps are being no repped.
Yeah.
Not it, but here's the thing: is just like Max said, if it's going super fast, then it's just like any doubt. What if that becomes a no rep? And then if
I
on
think
video
it makes
review,
the sport worse, and it makes the athletes fucking pissed
Exactly,
off.
exactly.
Yeah, like it's going to cause friction between the judges and the athletes that I don't think needs to be there.
now with all that said, I think what they're doing is a good thing. I think it's a net
Lord's work.
positive for the sport. And one of the things I think that we should bring up, because just like reading through the comments on our last podcast, like they were overwhelmingly positive, but a lot of people are like, man, this makes me kind of sad to hear you guys bash maybe the sport.
Yeah.
And we're not. Like both Max and I and Chris and everyone else around us, we love it. Like we want this to be a thing 50 years from now. And we want it to be a massive sport. And
I think it will be.
but what we want is we want to push the
Professionalism.
yeah, something that's not there. We want to add that to it by giving some opinions. We've been in it for a long time. Max has been in it for 15 years. I think it's 12 years for me. It's been a lot of us seeing things go poorly, and not that we're saying we have all the answers, but it's just like, hey, look, let's have conversations about this so that we can continue to improve this sport because we all want it to succeed.
Yeah, I think I don't know what the barometers for success in the early sport were, but I think if it was financial and if it was visibility and if it was getting CrossFit known in the mainstream, I think it was highly successful. However, there were aspects of decision making from 29 forward that were
29?
2009. From 2009 or 2007 even forward, where there were tons of people in the community that were really unhappy with the way things were going. And some of the points were valid that they didn't change over the years and that, programming didn't change or that the fittest on earth.
You're saying did you mean 2019?
I meant 2009. I'm saying from the whole course of the sport throughout its development, there has been shit going on that I think needed to change early on to make it a sport. But the success markers were all rising, so this shit wasn't taken care of. But now it's like, all right, well, this is going to stop the growth of the sport because it's stopping people from wanting to participate in it. But I don't necessarily think that that's I say it as constructive criticism because I think we're in a time where it is able to change. And I think that if the changes happen, it will allow the sport to kind of continue to jump off of that, the growth that peaked, I guess, in 2018 or 2019. Yeah. Like, I don't think of it as negative pointing out problems. I think it's like, hey, if this is going to grow and you want people to do it, there needs to be some system of fairness, equity, rules.
What is
structure.
that in people you think that when they hear this kind of talk, they think, man, so negative.
Yeah, like it's hopeless.
Yeah, I think we're just living in a culture where
they
everything
see it as
turns,
complaining.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, there definitely is an element to that where like it is complaining, but I don't think it's like for complaining's sake.
What's the definition of complain?
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't think
You're gonna have to look that up. While
guys carry the conversation
While Max is
on.
looking that up, I think just as something to kind of reflect on, the way that we improve our business is to get feedback from our athletes and those that view our stuff. Like we take that to heart, and sometimes we see stuff that's like, oh, that's silly, we're not changing that. But also, like, we do a feedback form multiple times a year for our online programs. We do the same thing for our individual athletes. We do that for our media, and so we want to take that feedback and build a better business. We want to offer better products.
Listen to anyone's feedback about the media.
Well, that's because it's you. But I have done that as a coach. I want to be a better communicator. I want to be able to deliver a better product. And the same thing is true for every business that has grown. Like Apple does that when you buy an iPhone. And even if you have complaints, like they're taking all of these, millions of reviews that they get and then they're tweaking things based off of those reviews. I just feel like the one sport that hasn't done that well, that is in the space now, is CrossFit, and we need to do that better.
A complaint is a statement that a situation is unsatisfactory or unacceptable.
I would say that's a complaint.
Yeah.
We're complaining, but we have solutions. We want to sit at the table.
Like, I don't think complaining is necessarily bad. So Travis sent me this yesterday. He was complaining about the programming that I wrote him. He said, I think we need to be hitting more random outside CrossFit stuff too. I feel like we've been doing a lot of indoor CrossFit stuff like open and semis, but not enough games prep and some of the random stuff like strongman biking, longer workouts. And he went on. But like that to me, even though it's a complaint, it's like, that's feedback.
I was going to say, that's not complaining. That's just giving you feedback.
But I feel like that's the same thing that I'm trying to do with the sport is like, hey, we participate in this on a really deep level. We love it. We want people to feel healthy doing it, continue to do it, continue to want to do it, make a living doing it. But there are some major issues that make it really difficult to do that. And here are some of them. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of why you have a platform, is to kind of talk about those ideas. Sometimes I say shit in these, then I read some of the comments. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And it almost like helps refine your ideas and see other perspectives. Saying stuff out loud and
really does help.
Yeah. So I don't know why it makes people sad, because I think there is a lot of hope in it.
I think Hiller's going to have at the end of the day, Hiller, with all of his videos pointing out all this stuff, is going to have a positive impact, I think, on the future of the sport.
Yeah, I think
it's a bummer to listen to it all now, maybe, but
yeah. It's Dave Castro. Actually, you told me to listen to the Sevan Dave Castro thing too.
Yeah,
and
you like it? I like that one.
I liked it. And one of the things that he pointed out is that critics are important in every sport. Like people like Stephen A. Smith that shit on athletes and.
In sport. Yeah, he was specific about sport.
In sport.
Yeah. Sport is meant to be criticism.
And I was like, oh, this is good. This is, even if it doesn't make dramatic change in the actual sport, it's good because people it's exciting. People like to listen to it and like to hear the drama. And it's helping create awareness and growth of like the whole culture.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah. Max has to get out of here in a few minutes, so I'm going to finish.
I had to cancel my appointment because I tweaked my back.
Oh, so we got time.
But I can also get out of here.
I was like, man, we're running up on time here. There's a lot to go.
What was your appointment for?
I was going to go swing some golf clubs.
Oh,
he's trying to.
Now you're out of commish.
Yeah,
Max is trying to get his swing good enough to actually close out the deal and beat me.
Yeah, all right, and that's the 10 seconds we had for golf. You know what? We should get you guys to start a golf podcast.
I want to start this was my idea yesterday. So I
thought this was my idea.
No. You had the idea of starting the TTT golf podcast. I jumped on that idea. And part of me was thinking like, in the CrossFit space, I have this like persona, like the wizard, or people talk about programming, or
don't you just hate that shit?
I don't necessarily hate it. It's just, it's weird to think of myself like that, because I also think of myself as like, you know, an idiot and doing dumb shit and like, you know, not listening to my own advice sometimes and making jokes and cursing. But I wanted to have a golf persona that was like a character from WWE, like be in there and fucking swing balls, rip my shirts off, talk shit to the audience, and be like, yo, you got to work out. It'll help you swing faster. So
maybe we can get Bianca to help you with that.
Yeah.
She's fucking crushing it right now.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was my idea.
Well, we'll finish this off with a little rapid fire, but it's going to be different than normal because Chris always hates my questions.
I mean, just up your game. Just up your game. It's not It's not.
It's a complaint. You filed a fucking complaint.
Just like Chris said, I ain't taking that advice.
Can we change the comment section to the complaint section?
Yeah, that'd be great. All right. So how this is going to work, I am going to say a person's name, and I want you to say the first word that comes to your head.
Oh, no. Are we doing a psych evaluation?
I love this.
All right, and I'm gonna make these easy for you, so it's not gonna be a big
easy.
deal. Okay?
Let's do some hard ones.
Travis Mayer.
Hold on. Well, you already gave me friend.
This is easy. Okay?
All right, hold on. Before we go into this, should I be like serious? Because what if something comes into my head that I shouldn't say on camera? Like, what if the answer to that was fuck weasel? Actually, that's 2 words. So I would have just said fuck.
All right, you can use up to 4 words.
Okay.
That would have been unfortunate. Travis Mayer, fuck.
Oh man,
right.
The second one was way better than the first.
Okay.
Although friend works.
friend
that
is
works. All right, Noah Olson,
Athlete.
Chris.
Creator.
I fucking bleep that shit out.
I like to know.
Don't be using my government name on here, bro.
I noticed, Chris. By the way,
Everyone
did
knows
you
now.
cover your face?
Yeah,
up
you
on the
did.
Video?
I saw that.
I was
And
like, what?
In
Who
the
is that?
crowd. Yeah.
What do you mean?
You put a face over your face in the.
I do that for everything.
I've never seen
I've
that
been
before.
Brad Pitt. That time I was JT.
Is that who it was? I couldn't.
Because the song playing is Cry Me a River. And that face is just like, gotcha, bitches.
All right, Dave Castro.
Heel.
Heel as in like WWE wrestling heel.
Yeah, heel.
Which means he's playing a character, not that he's a
Yeah.
genuine piece of shit.
Yeah.
I was about to say I need you're gonna have to give me more than one word for
Yeah,
that.
I thought that was like a known word, but
Okay.
Chris taught
No,
it to me.
so
like,
explain that
Yeah,
real
so
quick.
So in wrestling, you have face, baby face, and heel. And the heel's like the bad guy. But they're all just characters. They're all just regular
Okay.
people
Yeah.
playing a role.
yeah, like there's
And you need both. You need a baby. You can't have one. You can't have good wrestling with. You can have a couple baby face versus baby face matches or heel versus heels. But what we all love is when the hero is versus the villain.
Yeah.
And what we
Okay.
love even more is when there's a heel turn.
So
When the baby face turns heel. When Hulk Hogan goes Hollywood Hogan, brother.
if Castro is the villain, who's the hero in the sport?
It might be Dave Castro because he's
Both.
coming
Heel
back.
turn.
No,
Heel
it's,
turn.
it's
Dude, he is
Andrew
doing
Hiller.
a fucking heel turn. Castro's doing a heel turn. Oh my god! Holy shit!
Yeah.
Wow.
Does that
yeah.
just mean that they become the good person?
Or sorry, no, he's not doing a heel. He's doing the opposite of a heel turn. He's becoming babyface.
Yeah.
He's doing like Stone Cold was the bad guy, and then everybody you just fucking
then everyone-
this is
yeah.
wild. This is what's
Yeah.
happening.
It is.
All right.
I feel like that's everything in Better
Sorry,
Call
I'm trying to
Saul.
get my boner to go down.
Sarah
What about Better Call Saul?
Sigmundsdottir.
Savage.
Man, that is a good word for her.
I wish I could tell people. I guess I can right here, right now. Like, she's such a delight to have around.
Yeah.
Like, you would assume
really
someone
is.
with that many followers, and you just like from the outside, you're like, ugh, like fucking internet famous person. But man, she's a delight to have around.
Yeah.
So far, like she doesn't give a shit about any of it. I hope she stays here forever.
Yeah, that is very true. And she really is like just a sweet person that can turn it on in a workout.
Yeah.
That savage role is not outside of workout. She's like one of the sweetest people I've ever met, but then is a different person when she trains.
Yeah.
Focused.
Yeah.
I think that's another good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said Castro is whatever that word is. Greg Glassman.
Influencer.
I want you to go.
That's an interesting
Yeah,
word.
this
Because
is
you
interesting.
probably don't mean it in the.
Yeah, explain.
Modern
Yeah, well,
day.
in current culture, I feel like,
Like he's not posting ass photos.
yeah, I think the word influencer is silly to call what people that are famous on the internet are.
You know who the
I know
worst
that
people are?
they-
People who call themselves influencer.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Ugh.
Well,
I mean, people are making bank.
yeah, well, they make money, but I don't think that they influence culture so much as they entertain culture.
Correct.
That's what I think of an influencer as an entertainer. There are people that influence the way that culture operates and change the way that it operates. And I feel like Greg Glassman was kind of, maybe a disruptor would be a better word, but he disrupted the fitness culture in such a profound way that it influenced the way that people thought about fitness, health, longevity, wellness, strength and conditioning it's happened for over the course of 2 decades. And, it wasn't just him. It ended up being the whole network of people that he eventually got into it. But I think he was
nothing's ever just one.
I like
but I think
disruptor.
he was a disruptor of culture and an influencer of the fitness culture. Many people who were into it.
Yeah.
Maybe influencers just tainted now because
I agree.
But
Disruptor is good because he genuinely disrupted that market, and
Yeah.
like the strength and conditioning community went after him, like
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
things that happened
Yeah.
that were just false, and
Yeah.
it was an interesting
and he
time.
was going to war with some good shit.
For
Like,
sure.
He was actually I don't know him. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he was definitely You can come on in, Mike.
Mike,
Yeah.
come here.
Oh, speaking of,
Yeah.
All right,
say Mike's name.
Mike McGoldrick.
Bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
We're playing word
Mike just
association.
walked in. He's over here.
Oh man! Actually, we're gonna end it right there. Nothing more accurate.
I don't know. I feel like we need to speak on the team news.
Yeah. You get an official invite?
No.
What?
Yeah. Nothing yet.
Oh, okay. What's the team
Still-
news?
Oh, I just meant in case people hadn't seen the video where we.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's no official
sorry.
invite, but it's okay. It
Sometimes
looks
I
nice.
just
Follow
wonder,
me.
like, who do you want to listen to? When you really meet someone, most of the time you find that, wow, they're really not as bright or intelligent, and I am included in that for sure.
Yourself.
as I thought that they would be. I mean, even like these huge
I think that's
stars or
okay.
political
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Do you?
I think it's okay. You know why? Because I think there's a benefit to having people who are kind of out of reach, that you don't know personally, that can say some shit that you can buy into because you don't know, you haven't
Yeah.
heard them fart.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't know what their farts smell like. You know, you don't know all
How
the bullshit.
dangerous can that be, though?
It-
But no,
Like,
it
beneficial,
could definitely
yeah,
be
yeah.
dangerous, but it could also be beneficial because
Yeah.
I think what's this? You're never a you're never fuck. I always forget this thing as I'm trying to say it. You're never a messiah in your own. You're never a prophet in your own kingdom. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. It's like
Yeah.
no one gives it like here. No one's sucking your balls. Oh, Max El-Hag.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wow, he's so great. But you're going to go to the games and someone's going to stop you and be like, oh, you're so great.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're not great, but my point is if there's familiarity when you know somebody, and I guess there is some benefit to someone having a strong stance and you don't know all their crap on the internet. Did I just go on a tangent that didn't make any
No,
sense?
I know, I get what you're saying, but like that idealizing somebody can almost make it,
And it has
that
its
you
downside.
You can connect to the message
Yeah.
better. Yeah, I mean, I
Because
think
sometimes
that,
we're all human. We all have
yeah.
shit.
The other thing too is, so like if I'm having a text message conversation with somebody, say you say something and it triggers me, like emotionally, or like even it just changes the way that I think. Like, oh, that was a good point. There's a process time when you're talking to people in person.
Right.
And if you have text, there's a barrier that gives you that moment to think, or it could be multiple moments. Sometimes people send me a text message and I'm like, oh, that's a good point. And I'll just sit there and kind of let it ruminate for 20 minutes as I'm doing something and then be like, okay, I know how I want to respond to that.
Sure.
Writing, like I've been trying to write a book and sitting down, I'm like, man, this is such a linear thought process. It like almost allows me to look at my life and what I've done and who I've become and what I'm proud of and what I'm ashamed of, and allows me to think at things at a much deeper, more complex level. So let's just say in the future, somebody ends up reading that book and that's their only connection to me. They're going to think of me through that lens of being in linear thinking and reflection and writing and all the stuff that I do, but in person it's just different, right? Like all of that, you can't do all of that in
Right.
a period of time. It takes you 3 hours to write 10 pages in a book. It's a lot of thoughts to kind of organize. Then you
Yeah.
talk to someone in person, it's like, all right, do that immediately.
Sure.
No one can live up to that standard of thought.
Yeah. Even if I don't necessarily mean that they have to live up to like a certain intelligence. I think even more so, it's just like these revolutions or these like huge political movements are happening with people that we idolize and look up to that maybe we shouldn't. And so maybe it just goes back to we should spend 20 minutes after seeing that clip or hearing that thing or reading that tweet or reading the Facebook post and saying, is this true? And then let me do my own research so we can educate ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's true like in the training world and everything else. It just
Yeah.
would be better if we all kind of took a step back.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that the fitness industry or the CrossFit industry is a reflection of current culture. So the problems that you would see on a cultural, spiritual, political view of or health view of humanity, you'll see even within our own internal CrossFit culture, kind of the same type of patterns. And I don't know, it's like right now, even like the culture I feel like is listening to the loudest people, or what speaks loudest. And that's not, and sometimes that's not the best person to listen to if you're trying to make planning decisions about the future, like having thoughtfulness and slowness, or even, sometimes people that are really knowledgeable and really good at things are not understandable to people that could potentially benefit from following them, and it's a hard thing to do to say, okay, well, should we vote with our attention on YouTube, on Instagram, and or in politics. And we give our attention oftentimes to popularity, but popularity might not often be what we want in somebody who is going to change and shape the way that we think. It could be potentially that they are a disruptor like Glassman, or that they're a peacemaker and they can come in and they can take two completely warring ideologies and help them see the similarities in one another and bring them together. It's like leadership and being influential to me is a responsibility that our society has almost taken lightly. It's like, I want your attention. I'm like, all right, what are you going to do with it? Like, are you that conversation I feel like needs to be had even with our young athletic influencers. Like, hey, you're going to influence the next generation at some point, maybe not right now. And like brands and, all of us should be in kind of that discussion, because we're all tied to it. Wherever the CrossFit sport goes and wherever CrossFit as a culture goes, so too goes all of our businesses, because they're kind of leading the ship. We just have our little boats attached to them, hanging on for the ride a little bit.
Yeah, they're Titanic. And
I think whatever you were trying to say, I misunderstood when I gave my little 2 cents just a second
ago.
ago.
I don't think you did. I think that was good.
Okay, I don't.
What did you think I was saying?
I thought you were talking about well, never mind. Doesn't matter. I don't feel like talking anymore.
No, it's good. I think this is a good conversation because it all kind of ties back into what we said at the beginning, which is like coaching, and our philosophy of coaching is more than just performance. And so part of that process is maybe sitting back a little bit and then identifying certain things and continuing to improve as a person.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know that I have a big component of thought to my process. I like to think things out. I like to analyze. I like to try to articulate things that people can understand. And that resonates with some people. It doesn't resonate with other people. It's also hard to get out in a platform like YouTube or Instagram, because that is about entertainment. It's not about...
And it's fast.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely gotten fast.
And even I was watching Hiller's thing and I was like, man, this is interesting. So he's talking at speech cadence, and it's so fast, and it cuts from one thought
the jump cuts.
Yeah, and it cuts from one thought to the next cut. And I'm like, man, it's weird, because a normal conversation, if you're having, there's pause. There's like a pause between thoughts, or there's a break, or there's a segue. But our attentions are so used to processing information at that high speed that it's almost like most people
don't get it. You're like, fuck.
Yeah. They don't
I'm
want
sitting
to
here listening to this conversation,
thinking the same thing.
I don't think I'm going to edit, but I don't edit these. But I'm sitting there thinking I can cut this, make this attached to here. That's just going on in my head.
Yeah. And I don't know what's better. It's like, so we could do that, and it would be like, oh, our shit's more appealing. But I'm like, well, that's also not authentic. You can't.
Right.
Yeah,
I can't sit.
But then
and
at the same time, it's like if they listen to it more, and then they got more of the medicine, if you wanted to call what we said medicine.
Not
terrible analogy, but you get what I'm saying? It's just a weird
but at the end of the day, those that have major audiences now are those that are sitting down. I know Rogan can be, maybe. Controversial figure. Yeah, I was trying to think of the right word to say for him. But the reality is he has 150 million downloads a month. And it's because he has 3-hour conversations where he just lets these experts in their field talk, and you can learn new things.
But he lets experts in the field talk, but he's also an entertainer.
Yes.
He's a comedian. His skill with the English language is helping people be entertained, laugh, think in a way that's light and funny, and
but it's not clipped together. It's literally sometimes the conversations are really boring, and sometimes maybe they're good, whether you agree with them or not.
Oh, like there might be dead time because it's a 3-hour long thing.
The point personally, I love long dead time. I love when people go into the weeds and tell the same story 100 times, and you're like, Jesus. But I feel like that's where I feel like you learn more about people that way than when they're on topic. Not to say I don't like those other guys.
I ranted one time in this podcast, and I was like, fuck, I want to tell Chris to cut that out. I feel like I lost my thought there and forgot what I was talking about. It's just real.
You got lucid there for a minute.
Yeah.
If more people, not in the political realms, whatever he's doing right now, in the training realm, would sit down and have those conversations about the sport of CrossFit, about what we can do with better training principles, and just have those 3-hour conversations, man, there's a lot that could be done in the sport.
Sevan and Hiller do have
that's what I'm saying. They do a great job. That's I love what they're doing. That's not a knock.
Hiller's just making good videos that people will click.
Yeah.
I know we're making two different points. People we're simultaneously saying that it's really cool to have these long ones, but then also there's just something about the American attention span has just been fucking shot, because I feel it myself too. It's like
reading has dropped, literacy has dropped, and these things that seem like they're not a big deal, I think they are a big deal. If you have a whole culture of people that can't sit down and think through a problem and think through solutions to problems and think about how their actions could potentially not even hurt other people, but hurt themselves in the long run, then you create a culture of people that are operating in dysfunction without even realizing that they're operating in dysfunction. I think it's important to learn from other people's mistakes, from the stories of humanity, from the failures of humanity, from the people who've succeeded in humanity, and to really digest the richness of anybody's experience requires you to sit down and think or listen or read something or take a boring ass course, not just like open something and read a quick caption that's sometimes not even written in a real language, which potentially maybe becomes a language in the future. I don't know.
Think and listen.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, I just don't, I know myself enough to know that I can't live life like that. My brain doesn't operate by like shutting, by not thinking. So I think I'll probably always be on like hey, I'm a bit of an overanalyzer, and then I'm doing things in my life to try to quiet my mind. I'm trying to meditate or just scroll. Like sometimes I just open up my Instagram and get on the search feed and just scroll for like 30 minutes because I want to quiet my mind. But I think if I did that without the other side of it, I feel like, I would have just not really made any progress in the things I wanted to make.
What does that turn into? 30 minutes of scrolling on Instagram?
What does it turn into?
Oh man,
golf.
That sounds like
golf, CrossFit, and pretty people. Really,
yeah, it's the same.
Yeah,
very targeted.
Same algorithm there.
Yeah, my algorithm would be so predictable.
That should be the name of your book you're writing: Golf, CrossFit, and pretty people.
Yeah, I got a lot of. I've been writing chapters, so like vignettes, stories of my childhood, things. I have a CrossFit chapter about my story in CrossFit, and I'm like. I have, I think, like 25 chapters written in rough draft format. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to turn this into a book? It's going to be like just a story of things.
I'm sure that's how every author has ever felt. So you're probably in good.
Just reorganize. Or I'm trying to think of a book that I've read recently that's like that. Some just like are scattered.
Yeah.
Different chapters don't really, they're not cohesive until you read the whole book and you're like, man, that was really, really good.
I started reading about like ADHD symptoms and like how different people's brains work. And I was like starting to read it and I was like, I wonder if this like scatter mindedness is actually like, this is how my brain works. And this is like, and maybe then that can be like creative medium is like almost write it in the scattered format that my actual life is. It's just like, here's some shit about here. And then here's a completely different topic over here, just going from thing to thing.
I always find it interesting, either like watching a documentary or listening to especially like fiction writers and how they create that process. Like they have here's a character, here's the plot, and they just kind of like fill all these gaps.
Yeah.
And my brain would never be able to do that. They're just so talented, but it's a lot of fun to listen to that process, and everyone has a different process. So
for me, it's been
lots of Coke and cigarettes.
Well, Stephen King, for sure.
Yeah, the creative stuff is cool because they're almost like it seems like they're just pulling it out of nowhere. But I'm like writing about things that I've experienced, so I feel like it's been like, I almost didn't remember that, or now that I'm 20 years removed from that experience, how would I explain it, and how can I connect with the Max that was in that experience 20 years ago who was experiencing all this stuff, but now I look back on it and I'm like, that doesn't seem like me anymore. It's just like a abstract memory of who I was at the time. So
what do you think about your memories? Process. Do you think that what you are remembering when you're writing it down is what actually happened?
No.
There's no
I mean,
hell.
so I've read a good deal of stuff about how inaccurate memories are, and I just came back we went on the business trip to Denver, then I went to Phoenix, and I did another meeting out there, and then I went to a bachelor party of my high school friend, and there were all of these kids that I knew in elementary school. Well, now they're adults. There were.
I was out there with 8-year-olds.
That was a wild ass bachelor party, bro.
Richest kids again.
Sorry. I'm definitely getting canceled. So we were sitting and talking, and they were talking about memories of things that I did, and I'm like, I don't remember that, or you're remembering that wrong. Like one of us we're both sure about this, but somebody's wrong, and I think that's true all the time. Is people distort things over time, or fill in gaps, or want to remember things differently, and it's just an unreliable source that we think is like, our memory and our experience is right, but I think it's not.
How has the writing process been for healing some of those memories? Because everyone has like tough things, or you remember it a certain way, and then once you start writing, maybe you do remember a different thing.
Yeah. I think I did like a lot of the emotional processing already. I think now I feel like this is an ironic way to put it, but it's almost like it's closing a chapter in my life. Like I went through this experience, all these experiences, and I've done all this stuff. And now I'm thinking about all this stuff and how far I've come and the people that I've gotten connected with. And I'm like, okay, well, if I can look at, this is what 20 years of living, or like, let's say the 15 years of living from like when I was 20 and kind of moved out of my house and started kind of doing things on my own and trying to figure the world out. If that's what can happen in 15 years, if I can amplify that and keep some sort of momentum going and say, okay, well, in the next 15 years, I'm going to be a different human being and I'm going to have seen a different
crazy
things.
To think that way.
Yeah. And it's made me want to be, I made a lot of decisions when I was young because of insecurity, because of fear, because of things that I went through. Like I was scared for my business to fail. I thought that haters and doubters and people that said this was a stupid profession choice, that they were going to be right. And that I was going to be some guy that had a lot of talent and went threw it away because I wanted to be a meathead. And like you hear these things and you internalize them and then you make decisions like, I'm going to eat this way so I don't become fat, or I'm going to train this way so I can like the way that I look. And I made so many decisions that way. And now as I'm kind of like closing the chapter and thinking about what is the contribution, like this is going to be a period of my life that I could basically be at the apex of my contribution to the world. Like I'll have this energy for a period of time. And then, you know, if I end up living and don't die early, this is my time to really dig my hands in and do my work and make an impact. And I want to do it purposefully this time. And writing it and getting my thoughts out has helped me be like, all right, this is how I want to attack the next 15 years of my journey. These are the people that I want to be surrounded with. These are the types of experiences I want to have. And it's almost allowed me to get more clarity as to how to live life in a way that is in accordance with my current faith and value system and belief system, and not what was given to me as a child. Because we're all given that stuff at a time when we're absorbent of anything that comes at us. So, you know, it's taken me 36 years to challenge my belief systems about myself, about the world, about other people's ideologies, different types of religions, training practices, training philosophies, and try to just be a mindful human. Like, hey, this is why I'm here and why I wake up every day, and not waste it, because it can be cut out like that. And it kind of goes quick. Like writing about it, I'm like, holy shit, I'm a middle-aged man. Like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
Like talking to people that are teens out there or like graduating high school, and I'm like, man, I was their age when they were born. Like now I'm old. Like see pictures of myself and have like balding spots, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I can accept it. I like it. But
it's so funny you say that, because just last night I was looking at pictures with Kinsley, my oldest daughter, who she likes looking at the baby pictures of her. So we went through my phone.
What a
and like going
narcissist.
through.
Just like her
Yeah, I
dad.
can't believe it.
look at me.
But I mean, so
She
she's
drunk too?
yeah, I give her a little whiskey every once in a while. She's 4, so it's only been 4 years. But
So she's real drunk.
just a little sip. It was amazing looking back and being like, wow, one, I look so much younger. Like kids had just aged me or something. Maybe, I don't know, who knows. But also that night I was just laying in bed thinking about like what has changed, the way that I view the world, the way that I view work. I mean, everything. And part of that is you have this this newfound love in having kids, and that priority changes everything in your life. But then also just the years, right? Like you learn new things, you connect with new people, you build new relationships, and it just, everything always evolves. But so that's like such a beautiful way, not that I'd write a book, but I think it's a really cool thing to do, to reflect back and then also like make these resolutions for moving forward in your life.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, as we finish this up, what books are you reading right now?
I'm listening.
I've
been in
Audible?
I've been using Audible recently.
That's mostly what I do.
This is going to tell you where my headspace is. So I'm listening to Richard Branson's book, which is the guy who created Virgin, the Virgin brand. There's a book called Happy Days, which is about
The show Happy Days, please be about happy days.
no.
God dang it.
No, it says the guided path from trauma to pursuing freedom and purpose or something. Then this book called Future Tense, which is why is anxiety good for you, even though it feels bad. And another one called Tough by Terry Crews, which I finished 2 of those. The other ones I've listened to like half of them and gone back. And
2 of what?
I've been 2 of the books that I just read off. Yeah. Yeah. I've been in a weird state with books. I feel like I haven't like been one book linear finish it. I've been kind of ADD brain.
I think that's okay. My buddy Chris, Chris Moore, he used to say that do it. Don't feel like you have, if just because you opened a book that you have to finish it.
Yeah.
Jump around, and when it calls you, you'll be pulled back. And if you never go back, that's okay too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Don't feel guilty because you didn't finish.
I like that.
Yeah, if it's a hard copy and I'm actually reading it, I would never do that. I made it almost a resolution that I had to finish it before I got to the next one. But now with Audible, because I do the same thing, like my drive's 30 minutes, and so I will listen to one and it's like, okay, I'm going to switch it this week, and I'll just go back and forth until I finish both.
And then sometimes too, I don't want to listen to that. Like I have no interest right now in listening about fucking anxiety or this or.
Part of that is the way that the person sounds for me though.
Yeah.
If it's super annoying, I'm like, I gotta go to a new book.
It's sometimes I wonder, is it the author that's doing it? Like if I wanted to create
some of them are.
They'll say as narrated by the author.
Do you think I should try to get Sarah to narrate my book?
Oh my God.
I bet you'd be helping me sell it. Who would be the guy choice of that? Noah? It would be way too happy. It would be. I'd need like Samuel or like
smooth voice.
Who's Darth Vader? I forgot what his name is. The guy who has the voice of Darth Vader.
Jones.
James Earl Jones. Is he even alive?
There's like the murderer and the actor. Which one is it? Darth Vader voice.
Yeah.
James Earl Jones.
Yeah,
yes,
James Earl Jones.
Who's the other one? Isn't there someone else who like killed a president or something?
Oh, like a 3 name?
What?
Yeah. I feel like all serial killers.
You're talking about John Wilkes Booth?
Yeah,
No. Do they always have 3 names?
I feel like it's pretty common. Not always, though.
Only those named James and John.
And John Wayne Gacy?
Yeah. And here's where we show the dumb side.
What are you reading, Brannen? I don't even want to know.
No, yeah. I'm reading.
No, yeah, you don't.
I'm reading a book on Mao. It's a biography of his life, which is super interesting.
Big fan?
No, but it's wild. It goes from like his childhood all the way through. Like
when did Mao die?
Who wrote it?
Let me tell you. Jung Chang.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is it like a historical perspective? Is it
What do you mean by that?
like how?
She.
Maybe I'll ask you after
Yeah,
the podcast.
sorry. Yeah. Don't make me sound too stupid. She went and interviewed everyone that was connected with him that was still alive.
Okay.
And then she gathered thousands of historical documents and then basically wrote the book. But
Is she a U.S. based author? She is.
I mean, she speaks English.
Oh man,
but
he died in 76.
Yeah.
What?
I hear Mao and I think old as hell.
No.
That guy was
He's been
alive
dead
recently, like when Queen was around.
Yeah,
probably?
the majority of that process was really like 50s, 60s, and
When
then
did Bohemian
70s.
Rhapsody come out?
But I mean, it's just a wild story of going from like nothing to obviously running this country, and obviously there were terrible atrocities too. So that's why I love history. For those that have listened to podcasts, they hear that that's what I listen to most. But it's
History
It's,
1975. So Mao may have heard Bohemian Rhapsody.
no
That's wild.
chance.
It might have been played at his funeral.
Maybe so.
Also definitely not. And then a couple other ones, but
Are they picture books?
yes, Dr. Seuss usually at night.
Nice.
All right, friends. Thanks, Max.
See ya.